Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 23rd of December 2020. And these are the articles we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is written by the former member of the Planning Commission, Mr. Arun Mehra. This is a very informative article. Before getting into the details of this, let me explain the philosophy of self-reliance and how our strategy should be designed to achieve the maximum benefits out of this philosophy. Let us take the example of India and China. Way back in 1990, India did not focus on the manufacturing sector. We have learned this in our basic economy classes. So, every country across the history has taken a traditional model where initially they focus on agricultural growth, then they move to the industrial growth in the age of industrial revolution since 1750, and then after that they have moved to a information age where or even computational age which is driven by traditional software companies, and now they are moving towards the fourth industrial revolution which is driven by artificial intelligence. So in this scenario we are still stuck somewhere between this various phases where our emphasis should be right now on industrial growth. When we're talking about industrial growth, the major factor is job creation. India has a population today of 140 crores, and out of that nearly 70 crores are in the working age population, and this figure as a percentage would reach to 60% by 2035 according to certain estimates. So in this scenario, creating jobs is a prerequisite for economic growth. Now India, taking this fact into consideration, has come up with the philosophy of self-reliance. Now when we mean self-reliance or Atmanirbhar Bharat, what we exactly mean is we will not be discouraging foreign companies like what we have done after 1947, right after our independence. The reason why we have restrained companies from entering into our country back then is because we were just coming out of the clutches of the British rule, and there was definitely a sense of apprehension exhibited by a lot of Indians across the states with respect to foreign companies coming to our country. We still see that tendency in a lot of states, especially which have a socialistic inclination, like, say, for example, Kerala. So, this lack of industry has been one of the major factor for what is later called to be the rate of growth. Hindu rate of growth means a GDP growth which is not more than 2.5 to 3.5%. So in this context, what happened is we did not create enough number of jobs, and this rising unemployment coupled with inflation has led to an economic crisis wherein India was forced to open up its economy in 1991 through LPG reforms. So this is the backstory. Now, even after this, India did not achieve the kind of um, manufacturing ecosystem in our country when we compare it with China. At in the year 1990, India was on par with China. China has opened up way back in 1978 itself. But despite that fact, even after low industrialization, in the year 1990, both China and India were on a similar pedestal. Yet, after that, China has grown multiple times and is nearly more than 50 times the size of trade when we're talking about the new age technologies like IR 4.0. So just to put things into context, it is investing nearly 500 to 1000 billion dollars in 5G technology alone. Not even artificial intelligence, not even IoT, just 5G technology they are investing so much. So it is a given that the future is driven by this artificial intelligence and 5G technology kind of things. In this age of information, we are focusing on industrial growth. So in order to that take advantage of the huge markets, because I've already told you that we have a population of 140 crores. In order to take advantage of this, government has to come up with certain incentives to promote high quality manufacturing. Because if you take the example of the Chinese model, it worked in 1990 because there was no production at all. China became the factory of the world. Now almost all the smaller countries also had similar kind of factories. Say for example Vietnam, say for example Bangladesh. In fact, Bangladesh has actually performed better than our Indian counterparts when it comes to industry. So in this scenario, what should be the way forward? The government has come up with a unique scheme called production linked subsidy, and this production linked incentives are given to certain champion sectors which have a scope of high employment generation. Now when you have this scheme, obviously the focus should be on high quality rather than just high volume of exports. Volume of export should not be the criteria as it is right now. Let me explain why. Say for example, if we try to export 100 trillion hairpins and compare that with the revenue generated by selling one high technology machine, which will have more value and strategic advantage in the future, it is this high tech machine. So the basis for this is research and development. Unless and until we invest money in research and development, we will not be able to attract investments. So if we want to attract FDI, the future is in the hands of those which can produce what we know today as intellectual property. And India should create a regime where intellectual property rights are respected. Now, in order to achieve this, we have to focus on our basics first. First is health of the population, and the second one is education or skill set of the working age population. Unless and until we get these basics right, we cannot attract the right kind of investments and right kind of R&D. So everything is interlinked. It requires a significant amount of restructuring of the design of the production linked subsidy. So this production linked subsidies right now are focused on volume rather than quality. So we have to pick quality over quantity. It is not to say that those who give this volume right now should not be incentivized. What we mean here is quality should be given extra incentives rather than what we have at this moment. Say, for example, if you are creating a product which pioneers 3D printing like technologies, which are hitherto not there anywhere else in the world. So basically, we are not just talking about potential incentives. India should take the bold step of actually making the entire enterprise tax free for, like, say, for 10 years, to ensure the best of the R&D happens within the geographical limits of our country. Only when we can achieve this kind of high tech innovation, we can handle the $500 billion investments or the $1 trillion investments spent on R&D activities in China and elsewhere. Otherwise, it is simply not possible for India to dominate the economic scene as envisioned a few years ago. So, this is the gist of this article. Basically, the bottom line, the manufacturing policy should incentivize quality over quantity. That is the main agenda of this article. The second article, End of the Road for Ends, is taken from the Financial Express. The context of this article is the electronic nicotine delivery systems. So recently, the government has decided to promulgate the prohibition of electronic cigarettes production, manufacturing, import, export, and distribution, storage, and advertisement. Basically, everything that is related to this ends has been banned completely. or prohibited completely. Within the ambit of this ends, you also have something like e-hookah or the heat not burn products and several other devices. uh, Even the advertisement of these products will invite legal trouble. So all this mentioned products and activities are punishable with an imprisonment of up to 1 year, or there is also a fine. So if there is a subsequent offense even after the first time, there is an imprisonment of up to 3 years. The World Health Organization has urged member countries to take appropriate steps, including prohibiting this e-cigarettes and related products way back in 2016 itself. The government had issued an advisory in 2018 to all states to consider banning e-cigarettes. ICMR has also recommended a complete ban on e-cigarettes as it is adversely affecting the human body systems with impact across the life course. So these products are usually marketed as being safer alternatives for normal cigarettes, but that is not a fact. These products may act as actually a gateway products to induce non-smokers, especially youth and adolescents, to nicotine use. The major problem is nicotine. Nicotine is a very addictive substance. Since youth are resorting to this sort of products, they are eventually getting into smoking because it is leading to addiction and subsequent use of conventional tobacco products. So e-cigarettes are usually promoted by the industry as a smoking cessation aid. That is, if someone is addicted to cigarettes and they want a safer alternative, the industry promotes these ends as a alternative. So they are actually not safe, but they are projected to be safe. It is because of this reason the government has decided to ban it. There are several issues with this products as well, because firstly, there is no registration. They are simply sold without any regulation in the market. They contain nicotine. When they contain nicotine, which is an addictive substance, it is definitely going to have impact on the health of youngsters. Third one, e-cigarettes cause health hazards for youth, young adults, and especially pregnant women. A lot of women depend on ends because of the perceived safety of these products, but it has been proven that it affects pregnant women negatively. The next aspect is a number of metals, including lead, chromium, nickel, and there are certain chemicals like formaldehyde have been found in aerosols of even these products, which are generally found in cigarettes as well. And what is worse is the concentration of these chemicals and heavy metals is almost similar to that of a normal cigarette as well. So there is no additional benefit except the fact that it is much more expensive than a conventional cigarette. So a lack of knowledge about this negative effects of nicotine and the easy accessibility of these products make youth to pick this up, and they are eventually getting dragged into conventional tobacco products. So there are even certain conspiracy theories that ends are designed to push the tobacco industry even further, because eventually when they get addicted to nicotine and these products are so expensive, they find cigarettes to be a cheaper alternative and then resort to cigarette smoking, which is even more addictive. So this is a vicious cycle in the youth which has a long term impact on the psyche and the productivity of our population. We have a global level convention for preventing tobacco use. It's called the Global Tobacco Convention, which is one of the target set by our country as per sustainable development goals in good health activities. So there are various initiatives taken by the government and various targets as per the sustainable development goals, and within this ambit of the definition of good health, achieving the targets laid down in this FCTC is also one of the most important aspect. So did it actually see any results? Yes, there was a 33% drop in consumption of this ends products. So this is a very good sign that India can actually do much better with respect to this regulation. A young population may not know the consequences of these actions. They might not be happy with the activities taken up by the government, but it is actually helping the population in the longer run. In this regard, since health is a state subject, this is one area where both the states as well as the center came together and acted together to make this objective actually translate into action. So, that is a good example of how federalism and cooperative federalism, to be very precise, can yield significant results in very short time if the center and states work together. This is again an example of decentralized governance. So we can use this as an example while we are quoting the success of decentralized governance. That is the gist of this article.